We haven't finished our Speedlink tribute yet. Speedlink died on July the 8th, 1991. This is the Railscene review of how Speedlink spent its last quarter. We start with probably the penultimate train to traverse the Rosyth branch, with Thornton Class 20s numbers 066 and 137. As mentioned in our cab ride, post-Speedlink operations in Scotland include installations on ice. The two Royal Navy depots served by Thornton Junction at Rosyth and Crombie are among those with no future timetabled operations. One surprise has been the retention of freight to Auchmuty. Originally, the 08 based at Thornton had been planned for withdrawal. However, a twice-weekly block train will operate from Moss End. The branch from Markinch to Auchmuty has limited clearances, hence the retention of the shunter. O8761 is one of only 3 locomotives to sport provincial livery. From the new timetable, in addition to the clay working, the 08 will remain on standby for Cameron Bridge duties, previously a Class 20 turn. This, of course, being the duty featured in our cab ride. Working the 6017 on this occasion are 20198 and 119, en route to Moss End. RFD also utilises the Class 26, although none are officially on their books. This is the Moss End Grangemouth, which continued to Cambus Junction and Menstrie if necessary. Passing on the up is a construction Class 47 on cement for Moss End. 2 more cement wagons are behind the 26. These, in addition to the oil tanks, will be removed at Grangemouth. Only the smaller tanks on the rear of the train containing molasses for Menstrie will continue beyond this point. Traditionally, the molasses were taken to Menstrie from Greenock, but this terminal closed in May. The replacement operation is now a block working from Ely and Peterborough, a considerably longer journey. Railfreight Distribution's new timetable is designed wherever possible to be user-friendly. However, the review of the Speedlink network revealed that trip operation and marshalling represented 80% of costs. The only way to retain the business and make a profit was to replace all services with equivalent siding-to-siding train load operations. When the initial announcement was made that Speedlink was to be eliminated, it was considered that timber and grain traffic would be most severely hit. Indeed, this has been the case. We visited the West Highland for the last timber departure. % of timber traffic was destined for 2 locations, Chirk and Shotton. Unfortunately, the supply of timber is well spread. The only hope for the West Highland would have been to work 1 train load picking up at Fort William and Tainault, but this was not to be. In typical Highland weather, 37406 the Saltire Society departs with the last of the logs. This is also a Moss End service. Moss End remains in use by RFD and is one of only 7 marshalling yards still used. Only Willesden, Crewe, Basford Hall, Cardiff Tidal, Exeter Riverside, Dover and Didcot survive. Only 10 years ago, 32 marshalling yards were associated with Speedlink. This is RFD's newest engine, the Ultimate Class 90, number 50, approaching Carlisle with the 6V93 Moss End Stoke Gifford service. The train includes empty clay wagons from the Auchmuty branch, timber from the West Highland or Aberdeen Inverness line, and grain wagons. Rare travellers by rail after July the 8th. The deadline also brought doom for the 85-1s, as the new Class 90-1 subclass took over their duties. This is 85-105, on the Mondays only Bescot Moss End. Arriving at Bescot at 6 a.m. is intercity liveried 86612 Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, with a 6M28 Moss End Willesden service on the Thursday of the last week of Speedlink. Bescot's RFD interest has been greatly reduced, although it is used for train ferry operations on a weekday. Over 50 Speedlink services were previously booked to arrive or depart here. This, more than anything, shows how sweeping the changes have been. In addition to trains stopping over on trunk routes, trips from Bescot included Brierley Hill, Coles Hill, Cotton Hill, Wednesbury, Washwood Heath, Bloxwich and Banbury. The 6V03 Banbury Speedlink served Fenny Compton and Grieve sidings near Harbury. Blue Circle's number 4 draws wagons out of the Harbury terminal. This Sentinel design is based on the company's previous steam designs, such as the Middleton Railway's infamous box. The terminal was previously served by the returning Banbury Bescot Speedlink, Mondays to Fridays. Now the operation is once a week, as a block train, the former regular signalman being moved elsewhere. The subsectors within Railfreight have taken responsibility for their own traffic now that small wagon load duties have been replaced by block workings. Construction should now operate this working. 37101 arrives from Fenny Compton with military vans in tow and, at the rear of the train, cement wagons for Blue Circle. To understand the workings of Speedlink, you've really got to study the trip and trunk operations of one yard. We chose Whitemoor. This is the Whitemoor Bury St Edmunds trip. (47-366), the Institution of Civil Engineers, departs March with engineers' wagons for Bury St Edmunds and vans for Papworths at Ely. Since the introduction of Civil Link services, the once everyday sight of departmental wagons on Speedlinks is considerably less common. Whitemoor Yard itself has become surplus to requirements. Inevitably, some traffic has been lost in the area, although Railfreight's prediction that 50% of Speedlink freight flows would be lost is thankfully pessimistic. Over 70% survives. Brandon, unfortunately, represents part of the 30%. The wood traffic to Chirk no longer goes by rail. This is 47019, now an engineer's loco, on the 6P82 Whitemoor to Norwich. On this occasion, the train includes a single oil tank on a roundabout route from Thames Hayden to serve Norwich Diesel Depot. The 5 PNAs offer Wyndham from Redland at Gateshead, and at the rear of the train, are OTA timber wagons converted only a few years ago from long wheelbase box vans. The empties are propelled into the sidings before the 47 continues to Norwich. On the return, loaded wagons would be collected here for Kronospan at Chack. These would join the Parkstone Bescot at Whitemoor before continuing to Shrewsbury at 5 a.m. the following morning. Incidentally, the return ran over 2 hours early, a tray of Speedlink. One company who will not find it difficult to make up train loads is Papworth's at Ely. This is 08526, the Ely Station Pilot, returning from the company's sidings at Ely North Junction, see Railscene 14. The shunter trips the wagons into the loops at the south end of Ely Station for collection by the northbound Duxford or Bury St Edmunds to Whitemoor Speedlinks. On this particular occasion, it was the Duxford that collected these cargo wagons. Running early is the Duxford trip with 47308 in naked Railfreight livery. Traffic is from Siebergeige. Loaded wagons contain glue, whilst empties return to the chemical plants on Teesside. At March, we view the 6M90 Parkstone Bescot. Here, the two Class 37s, 015 and 238, negotiate the point work at the east end of the station to continue into Whitemoor Yard. This train was booked a 2-hour stopover in Whitemoor Yard to be re-marshalled. The load includes 3 empty steel wagons returning from Leiston, 4 grain polybogs en route from Diss to Scotland, 2 British oxygen tanks from Ipswich to Ditton via Warrington, 3 loaded timber wagons for Chirk, and a single oil tank empty from Ipswich Stabling Point. Not only is the train re-marshalled, but the locomotives go out on a different service. The pair, this time with 238 leading, depart for Moss End. The leading wagon is from Campbell's in King's Lynn and is bound for the Isis Link depot at Law Junction near Carluke on the West Coast Main Line. This traffic flow has been lost. Not exactly super. The grain wagons are probably for Berg Head on the Aberdeen-Inverness line. No grain services are as yet timetabled to run after July the 8th. If any grain survives by rail, it will run as required. Interestingly, portions of the King's Lynn, Parkstone and Duxford services are included in this train. 47532 Blue Peter was provided to continue the Parkstone Bescot from Whitemoor. The Papworth's vans, seen previously behind the 08, join Wood from Ipswich and Brandon. The re-marshalled train includes parts of the Duxford, King's Lynn, Parkstone and Norwich trips. We continue our timber travels. The Chirk-bound traffic behind Blue Peter would depart from Bescot on the 6J36 to Cotton Hill. This is the 6T71 departing Cotton Hill. (47 307) Bunting departs towards Alscott with Nordsk hydro fertilizer from Immingham. On arrival from Bescott in the early hours, the train was split in the yard. The timber would depart later. 2 terminals were served by this duty, Donington and Alscott. Both are now lost to rail traffic. At lunchtime, the same 47 would trip the timber to Czech. This is the return. It was very difficult to predict which freight flows would be discontinued. It seems inconceivable that a freight this long cannot be made into a profitable trainload operation. More to the point, it seems totally amazing that this train survives. This is the Eastleigh to Fursbrook Speedlink, which is run almost daily with 1 wagon, as Wool and Holton Heath traffic became irregular. It survives as a twice-weekly trainload. Remaining on the Southern, this is 47212, with a Speedlink run by Railfreight Metals, but utilizing an RFD Class 47. The new service is now Class 56 operated, directly from Cardiff. This train is heading for Birmingham. As the new trainload operations take over from traditional wagon load services, metals, construction and petroleum have had to make different arrangements for their customers. A full feature on Kent Railfreight will be in News Views. Largely unaffected has been the Continental traffic from Dover. In fact, around 85% has been retained, and the remarshalling of these trains is essentially the only reason for retaining an interest in the 8 marshalling yards. Distribution has even retained the Dover shunters, Class 33s, despite the fact that the whole train ferry operation nationwide only requires 7 RFD Class 47 diagrams. This is the Dover-Warrington-Arkley service, now curtailed at Bescott. Warrington is no longer an RFD installation. 47536 Solario works the Arpley Edge Hill trip and conveys fuel for the depot. Not exactly a great revenue earner. A few services have been started to supply fuel to diesel depots. However, some outposts may see road delivery. A little sad. On the last weekday, we started early. This is the Stoke Gifford to Tavistock Junction service, departing the yard at 5:55 a.m. The yard, adjacent to Bristol Parkway, is the only one on the western region to totally close from July the 8th, although Gloucester retains engineers traffic only. The western, of course, has relatively recently lost East Usk to Speedlink and, more importantly, Severn Tunnel Junction. Perhaps in retrospect, that was the first sign that Speedlink was on its way out. Even Dr. Beeching in 1963 predicted the demise in wagon load traffic, and thus freightliners were introduced. There were around 5,000 wagon load installations in 1963. Now, around 100 sidings are regularly used. We think that constitutes a major decline. Heading for Stoke Gifford is the 6V93 from Moss End. Note the Tullis Russell wagons from Auchmuty. On the rear is a new trainload metals curtain-sided wagon, which would be dropped off at Warrington. This was Warrington's last day for rail freight distribution. All operations, basically train ferry traffic, will be concentrated at Crewe. Walton and Dalham yards closed. Here, 08913 departs on the last day with an empty Fitzgerald lighting wagon to be returned to Cornwall. Speedlink was the great wagon load hope inaugurated in 1973. Now, 18 years later, it's all over. Speedlink is dead. Long live wagon load. From the 8th of July 1991, all services denoted SLK in the BR working timetable were withdrawn. Direct siding-to-siding replacement services had been drawn up to save 70%, of the former Speedlink traffic. This is 47213 with the new St. Blaise Moss End service operated by Tiger Rail Limited in conjunction with Railfreight distribution. The train runs 3 times a week and is paid for by Tiger Rail, who effectively sell space on the train. The private owner Speedlink has enabled companies such as Fitzgerald Lighting and Taunton Cider to continue sending their goods by rail. Here, cider joins clay for Auchmuty, Aberdeen and Moss End. The government requires each sector of BR to be self-financing by 1993. The demise of Speedlink and the new private owner Speedlink are a direct result of this. 1993 will also see the opening of the Channel Tunnel. A great future for the private owner. The Tiger goes from strength to strength.